All right, 5:30 p.m. in Perth, 8:30 Eastern States, and 7:30 in Brisbane. So very good evening and welcome. My name is Garth Davis. I am the founder and CEO of Property Powerhouse. Really excited to have you along for the webinar this evening. Fully educational. There won't be any selling at all. Got some great presenters on, and we're going to meet them shortly. Tonight's topic, Australian property market update and best locations to be investing in. So thank you for giving us your time. We're going to definitely try and be finished within the 1 hour period. I'd like to introduce the presenters. So next up on my screen, I'd like to introduce Dana Reynolds. Good evening, Dana.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dana.
Please carry on. Whereabouts are you based and what's your role?
Sure. I'm based in Perth. I'm the head of property research for Property Powerhouse. Looking forward to chatting with you all tonight.
Thank you, Dana. I've got Claire next up. So good evening, Claire. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Good evening, Garth. I'm Claire Christensen. I'm the owner of Rent Choice based here in Perth, West Australia. And we're a 100% property management agency.
Thank you very much. Samara, a few of you might know Samara from previous webinars. Good evening, Samara. You're looking a little bit blonder than normal. What's been happening?
It's sunny Queensland. It's been school holidays, so plenty of sun kiss here. But yes, I'm Samara Bedwell, and I'm the Managing Director of Macwell Property here in Brisbane. And I'm looking forward to chatting tonight.
That's wonderful, guys. Thank you very much. I'll just get you to turn the videos off and mute, and we'll be with you very shortly. All right, we'll get the webinar underway. I'm just going to move that out the way, and let's get started. All right, so quick disclaimer about tonight, information from the presenters and myself. It's all educational information only and definitely not specific to your own individual needs and causes. Property Powerhouse, who are we and what do we do? By providing education, support, and experience, Property Powerhouse enables mum and dad investors to buy investment properties all around Australia, enabling them to retire wealthy and happy, ensuring them a financially free lifestyle in retirement. So that's what we're trying to do each and every day when we're dealing with our clients. So what are some of why use Property Powerhouse and what makes us different to other people in the property space? Well, we're going to help you buy the best investment properties Australia-wide. That's our point of difference. We have an Australia-wide footprint and we specialize in investment property. That's all we do. We work at no cost to the buyer ever, which is fantastic. So a lot like a role of a buyer's agent, but a buyer's agent may cost somebody 15 to 20,000. We do that at no cost. And our properties are always priced well. Our properties will value on contract price every time. Fixed price contracts. So the beautiful thing with that is any property that's presented to a client, the price is fixed and does not vary. When you go to home opens looking to buy a property, it may be priced from a certain price. And people in strong markets of Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide will know, the price it's advertised from is not what you buy it for. In Perth, in the last sort of 18 months, if a property has been priced from 600,000, it probably ends up 150K more. What we do is we negotiate very hard before we present the property. We negotiate hard with the vendor to make sure that we get the best price we can for the buyer, and it's fixed. There's no moving in the price, and that is fantastic. And probably our biggest asset to the value add to our clients is the long-term support and assistance. As long as you own that property, we will remain a support person for you. Remembering a normal real estate agent would hand you the keys, wish you good luck, and ask you to get hold of them when they want to sell it. That's not our plan. We're trying to help you hold this property for 15 to 20 years, and we remain a support person with assistance for as long as you own it. Right, market update. I'm mindful of my time and my awesome fellow presenters. I don't want to take up their time. Market update. Right, let's have a look at this. So I'm just moving the videos out the way there. So this chart here comes out from CoreLogic. If you've been on some of our webinars before, you'll know that we refer to CoreLogic a lot. They bring residential data, sales data from around the country, one of the most reliable and respected sources. This chart comes out at the first day of every month, and it's to encapsulate all the data right up to the end of the previous month. So let's have a look at this. So this is at the end of 30th of September, so a couple of weeks ago, but the latest chart that we have. What we have here is the capital cities down the left-hand side, or the extreme right-hand side is the median values. So this is for dwellings, this is houses, villas, and townhouses, and apartments. All right, so it's the real cross-section. And you have your median prices down the right-hand side. And as we would expect Melbourne at the top. But what we wouldn't expect is to see Brisbane at number 2, Canberra, I think, is number 3, Adelaide, number 4, Perth at number 5, and Melbourne at number 6. So we would not expect Melbourne to be running 6th. We would expect them to be sitting 2nd. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because properties work in cycles, and the cycles work in different cycles in each of the capital cities. So the Australian property market, if there's such a thing, doesn't work at the same time. Some capital cities are performing really well and others are not. And let's have a look here. We can actually see that in front of us. The property market in Australia is working at a 2-speed economy, 2-speed property market. And what we can see is we have Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth powering along. You can see over the last 12 months here, sorry, this is the chart here, 24% growth. It's phenomenal in the last year, 14% here from Adelaide and 14.5 from Brisbane. These are the 3 that are powering along. And then we have on the flip side, the 2-speed property market we can see Melbourne has actually gone negative for the year. Sydney has sort of gone sideways, Hobart negative, Darwin, and Canberra sort of sideways. So we've got Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth powering along, and those numbers sort of carry through to the last quarter and through to the last month. So definitely like a 2-speed property market. And what we'll find is once those properties, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, have done their dash, then they'll be doing nothing, and we'll find that the other markets, Sydney, Melbourne, Hobart, Darwin, performing well. So our job is to, with the help of Dana, our property researcher, is to try and identify the right markets to be investing in. It really comes down to time in the market. If you hold a property for 15 to 20 years, you're going to do really well. But if we can help you get into a market that's going through a really strong growth period, we can get you hitting the ground running, getting some quick equity, enabling you then to potentially go and buy your second property if you're going to try and build a portfolio. So in this last month, we can see Brisbane had good growth, Adelaide, Perth, top performer. Now that's actually a slight decline on the previous 5 months. Perth has been powering along at 2% growth per month for the last 5 consecutive months. A little bit of steam is coming out, and it's still performing well, but not at 2%. What do we put that down to? Number 1 is affordability. At some point, the median price just becomes out of reach. People can't borrow that kind of money, they just can't get finance, or they just don't want to pay to those levels. So, and we'll have a look at a chart just now and see which properties in these capital cities are more in demand than others. But yes, it's not coming from a supply. There's a lack of supply right around the country, but in Perth, lack of supply. Adelaide, Brisbane, no supply, strong demand. But yes, a little bit of the rate of growth is starting to ease off a bit, but still very strong. So if you've had a property in the Perth market in the last year, you've made probably on the median price $200,000 in 1 year. In Adelaide and Brisbane, you would have done very well too. But we're going to discuss it in a moment. The markets that haven't performed well, we keep our eye on those, because those are potentially markets about to take off. Let's have a look at the next slide here, and just going to move that down there. And what we can see here is this, again, is from CoreLogic. These are the graphs that I want to have a look at here. This first section here is Brisbane. And what's important here is to understand where this talks about where the most growth is happening. Now, on this little key chart on the right, that sort of mustard color is the lowest 25% in value, the lowest, what they call quartile, and then the middle and the highest. What this tells us is that in Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth, it's the bottom price properties. That bottom 25% is where the growth is the strongest. And the reason for that is the market for your first home buyer and your investors. They're trying to get into the more affordable properties, and those generally have the stronger rental yields. So as you can see, as the properties go up in value, they're still going up, but the strongest growth is coming from the bottom quartile. And on the flip side, you can see, let's have a look at Melbourne, and it's the expensive properties that are falling the most. So interesting. And again in Hobart, and we can see in Darwin. So the pattern is consistent, where in the markets that are performing badly, the discounting and the dropping of dwelling values is happening on the top quartile, so the expensive properties. But when the markets are going up like this, the most demand and most growth is happening at the lower end of the market, the entry point. So in Perth, that's your kind of 500,000 to 650,000. Strong demand there, home buyers and investors. Right, I'm going to see if I can move us to the next slide now. Just mindful of my time. All right, this is also from CoreLogic. Now, this is the section I want us to look at. Now, this gives us rental yields. This is important because this is really how much rent are we getting back on the value of the property. The higher the number, the better the rental yield and the better the cash flow on the property. So you can see Darwin here has very good rental returns, but it's had very low growth. The Perth market, you can see they're talking about 4.2%. Hobart 4.3. Now, what I'm very proud to say is, like, the properties we've been helping and supporting and recommending in Perth, well, we're getting 6.5%. 7% rental yield. So we were shooting way above our weight here in the Perth market. The higher the number, the better. And why is that number important? Well, we go to the next slide. Because when you're an investor, it's about, yes, you want growth, but we also have to be very careful on the cash flow of a property. So when we buy an investment property, mostly investors will get an 80% loan to value ratio. They will get an interest-only loan, which is most tax effective and serviceability effective. And these are care of Mark Kruger from House and Home Loans today. He's kindly given us this data. Variable rates, so if you on variable, which I think probably 95% of the population of mortgages will be on, 6.54%. And we can see the fixed rates start to come down because there is, as we know, an expectation that interest rates should be dropping towards the beginning of next year. But we've read in the paper, we've got the current government sort of slugging mud at RBA, and it's sort of them slugging it back. Inflation is still above the trend line of that 2 to 3% where they want it. So we're not sure when interest rates are coming down, but they've come down in the US, and they came down a big chunk last time, 0.5%. In New Zealand, they came down 0.5%. But mind you, they're coming from a higher base. They did go up more aggressively into a higher position than what we got in Perth. But yeah, so we need to try and get yields close, rental yields as close to the 6.5% to look for a cash flow neutral property. So the higher your rental yield, the closer you get to meeting the shortfall on the property or the outgoings on the property. We mentioned Melbourne, so we've got 1 minute to talk about this. We see Melbourne market as definitely a market to watch. Because it hasn't grown in value for this last year, that's also like a red flag to us to say, okay, there's a reason to keep an eye on that market. It's normally second on the batting order for values of capital cities. It's currently sitting on, I think I said 6th or 7th. So to us, that is a buying signal. What it means is Melbourne is very, very much undervalued. That is a buying opportunity, but it's not across all properties, and you need to buy very, very carefully there. Also, what we're finding is the rental yields are very low there at the moment, and that's been traditionally the case, which means the shortfall to buy a property there, it's not growing in value yet, and the rental shortfall per week, per month is quite large. But what we're seeing is there's a lot of investors selling there at the moment because there's been some changes to the land tax regime and some changes also to the Residential Tenancies Act there in favour of tenants. but like all things, they work in cycles. So we've got investors selling out there at the moment, but that again is a buying signal. What that means is there's a delayed effect, and 18 months to 2 years, they are going to have a rental shortage crisis in Melbourne, and then the rents will go up, the yields will go up. And if you can get in at the affordable prices of today, you're going to do really well. So this is a market to watch. Work with us, talk with us. Dana and myself have just been in Adelaide about 2 weeks ago for a week, having a look there, and she's going to speak about that tonight. But we're going to Melbourne for 2 weeks at the beginning of November. We do have our researchers on the ground already, but we're going to spend 2 weeks there really meeting our builders, developers, and really knuckling out the best opportunities there. So yeah, keep an eye on Melbourne is what we're saying. Right, I'm going to go to the next, that's the end of my slide. Think I've done okay, so hopefully Samara doesn't shoot me, but I'm going to ask Samara to come on now and just to unmute herself. So just, I'm going to introduce Samara. So Samara, as always, a pleasure to have you. And Samara is the Managing Director of Macwell Property Management. She has 20 years experience in the industry. During her career, she has won many national and state industry awards. Highly regarded as an industry expert in Queensland, Samara has written several key articles for industry publications and newspapers, and contracts to the Real Estate Institute of Queensland as a trainer and consultant. She is known for exceeding expectations in customer service, I'll second that, and believes in employing staff with a positive and hardworking attitude. And I've known Samara for 20 years. She's managed many of my own properties in Queensland, and my clients love her and her team. When I phone my clients every 3 months, 6 months after they've settled, I say, how's your property? Ticking along nice and quietly? Yes, God, it's great. I said, how's that property manager of yours? They say she's wonderful. All right, so they speak very highly of you, Samara, and you're doing a good job. So good evening and welcome.
Thanks, Garth. That's lovely to hear. So I won't hold you guys up for too long tonight, but I just have been invited here to talk about the Queensland market and give you an update on that. So I'll just get you to turn over to the first slide if I can. So welcome to Queensland. I am originally a New South Welshman, and I've been up in Queensland now more than half my life. So I guess I can technically say that I am a Queenslander. As we dive deeper into the vibrant property market of this Southeast Queensland, there's a few crucial factors that are emerging that are propelling the region's sustained growth. There's so much allure here because of the affordability to obviously the lifestyle that we have here. So I want to explore those with you tonight and just see what you guys think at the end of it. So next slide, please, Garth. So let's have a look at what we call the current conditions. So this is sort of everything leading up to the start of this month, or the end of last month, should I say. So the stock here has been very limited due to sellers having nowhere to go. So we call this like a gridlock. No one was selling because there was nowhere for them to go. Both sales and rental markets were up together, and this is very rare. It's usually if sales are up, rentals are down, and vice versa. Well, the rental market was accelerated, and so was the sales. So Garth showed you in some of those slides the growth in terms of the Queensland market was having. Investors have been largely absent from our market, so we'd love to see a few more investors come back in, and there may be some opportunities that we can talk about. We've also found that tenants are seeking properties below $700 a week. We're talking about properties that were renting literally 12 months ago for $450 to $550 a week rent, now renting for $750, $800 a week. And you can understand that when incomes haven't gone up in comparison to that, people are looking for those sub $700 a week properties. So next slide, Garth, if you don't mind. So if we have a look at some data trends, transaction numbers have been limited, causing disparity in expectations between buyers and sellers. So we're seeing about a 15% gap between what the seller expects and now what buyers are prepared to pay. So after COVID and even up until to early this year, we had a thing we were calling FOMO. Everyone's heard of it, fear of missing out. So there's a lot of panic buying. What we're now seeing is FOOP, fear of overpaying. So people are taking their time, they're checking things out. So the days on market are now slowly returning to about 30 days compared to 15 days prior to the start of this month. So we have seen that little change in the market just starting to evolve now. The market is seeing a slow but steady increase in that stock availability. So people are starting to find that confidence to put their properties on the market and find somewhere else to go. So I'll get you to just move over again, Garth, if that's okay. So what's the implication for investors? So while there are signs of growth here in Southeast Queensland in the property market, it is important for investors to always remain patient and realistic in their expectations. So you don't need to panic buy here at the moment. As stock becomes more readily available, buyers and sellers may need to just adjust their expectations to align with current market conditions. There will still be opportunities for investors to find properties that meet their needs, particularly in that sub $700 per week rental market, which is going to be where you get that quick return. So we're always looking for the shortest vacancy rate with the most rent possible, but with the best quality of tenant. So that's what we're looking for in terms of that for our investors. Next slide, please, Garth. So what are these driving factors behind our Queensland market? Well, we have the 2032 Brisbane Olympics, and this is likely to maintain interest in the region. In fact, straight down the road from my house is pointed to be the whitewater rafting precinct, so I'm pretty excited about that. Brisbane has a diverse economy that is less volatile than most other capital cities. The state election is almost complete, will give business more certainty shortly. So once that's done, we end up with a more certain aspect. While there have been some changes in the legislation seen here in Queensland, the legislation changes haven't overly favoured the tenants to the same level as the other states. So that's good for us here in Queensland. Interest rates are probably at the top of the cycle now, and when they fall, hopefully, which should support more capital growth. And rent returns are historically at high levels, and the shortage of stock coming online should see this continue. So there's not a lot of new builds at the moment. There's sort of more outer ring properties. So we are really pushing for, more building to occur, which obviously though will then push down rental prices, etc. So next slide, if you may, Garth, please. So where to for Southeast Queensland? The Southeast Queensland property market is showing signs of growth, but you need to remain cautious and stay informed with your decision making. And that's why a lot of our clients do choose Property Powerhouse. Now, that's not a would you like fries with that, but it is hard to keep a track of these markets. It is hard to know whether you are buying at the right time. And so having professionals such as Garth and his team of researchers will help you come a long way. By understanding the current market conditions and trends, investors can make wise choices and capitalize on the opportunities that will arise. So Garth was talking about being time in the market, and I've got a great example there where we had, I think it was a referral, Garth, from you many years ago. They'd held their property for the best part of 20 years. So they've actually been with me during my career. They were ready to retire, and 20 years in the market, they're purchasing at 375,000 and they're selling at over 1.2 mil. So you can imagine what that's done for them in their retirement.
Wonderful.
So it's time in the market. So next slide, please, Garth. Factors fueling the market's flame. I'll get you just to quickly go over. I'll try and rush through this a little bit for you.
Next slide.
Next slide, please, Garth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've always been a reasonably affordable state compared to other major capital cities. Obviously, we've just had that big growth, but we still remain fairly attractive. It's a good destination, and buyers are still interested in getting into the Queensland market. The proximity to Southeast Queensland, we're basically in the middle of the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, and this provides people with a range of opportunity in employment, education, lifestyle. So it's very diverse. Infrastructure investment, major infrastructure projects such as the Queen's Wharf and the Cross River Rail is driving demand for properties in the surrounding areas. So they offer, you know, improved connectivity and amenities. And it's about time, I'm going to say that lovingly, it is about time that we've had this here in Queensland. Next slide, please, Garth. So I'm just going to finish on a little city update because, you know, we want you to come to Queensland. We want you to visit our beautiful city. I love it. It is fantastic, but we've always been overshadowed by Sydney and its beautiful quays and things like that. But Queen's Wharf is a project that is completing soon. In fact, most of it is now complete. It's one of our major infrastructure projects currently underway. So it's going to be on the waterfront. It's going to be new entertainment and lifestyle precinct. And I'll give you a bit more information if you slide over to the next slide for me. So it was a $3.6 billion development that includes 4 new luxury hotels, a casino, which I've already been to, restaurants, bars, retail spaces, and public amenities. The project created thousands of jobs during construction and operation, providing a significant boost to our local economy, and the timing was amazing. The development has and will feature a new pedestrian bridge connecting South Bank, which is also a glorious area, to our CBD, as well as a new public park and event spaces. Guys, do yourself a favour, as Molly Meldrum would say. Come along, visit. You will love it. It is stunning. And we'd love to see you here in Brisbane. So I'll get you to go over to the next slide. And this is who we are. So if you do happen to pop into Queensland, Southeast Queensland for any reason, please feel free to come visit me, meet my team. There's myself, my husband's in the sales arena for us. We've got Lerma, Oscar, who's actually our school-based trainee. We're pretty proud of that kid. He's pretty cool. We've got Anna in sales administration, Sonia and Tracy, who support me in my side of property management. We'd love to see you. Queensland is a spectacular place. It's obviously thriving at the moment. So we're pretty proud of what we've got on offer.
Right, that's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, that's really good. I'm pleased to hear that you went to the casino. So how long has the casino been open and the Queen's Wharf there?
Okay, so it's only been open a couple of weeks, the casino, and we were there on day 3. Actually, one of my friends was part of the architectural team, so we got a little bit of a sneak peek in. It was a little bit chaotic, as you can imagine. 3 days, the restaurants weren't quite up to speed and things like that, but there was people from all walks of life, all areas that actually were coming in to see it as it was opening. So it's absolutely stunning, though. It is beautiful.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. And thank you so much for your contribution. For those attendees, please, there should be a Q&A position somewhere at the top. If you've got any questions, please fire them away. We'll either answer them during the presentations or we will answer them at the end. And thanks very much to Samara. All right, I'm going to go over to our next presenter, that is Dana Reynolds. So I'm going to ask Dana to turn on a video and unmute herself. And yeah, great to have you with us, Dana. So Dana, we're very proud to have Dana in our team, in our research team. Her role is property researcher and stock acquisition specialist for us at Property Powerhouse. As I say, great. She's been fantastic and really added so much value to our business in the time she's been with us. Background for Dana. Dana has been in the Australian property industry for over 15 years as an avid property investor, developer, renovator, and as a real estate licensee with a specialization in new developments nationwide. Prior to joining Property Powerhouse, Dana was the developer's master agent for the towers at Elizabeth Quay in Perth. And I think she'll tell us that's got something to do, I think, with the Queen's Wharf also. So you can tell us about that beautiful thing we're hearing about in Brisbane. So Dana, as head of research for Property Powerhouse, Dana and her extensive team spend their time reviewing and assessing investment property opportunities Australia-wide, searching for top quality, low-risk opportunities for our clients. Good evening, Dana.
Good evening, Garth. Thanks for having me tonight. So just a bit of background on me. I'm from New York originally. I moved to Perth about 16 years ago to be with my husband, who is a local builder here in Perth, which is why together we love renovating and developing properties. I've been in the market for about 15 years professionally and personally, and I just love property. So Property Powerhouse has been an amazing opportunity for me. I've been with the company about 6 months now. I've gotten to meet many of you who are on this webinar this evening. To those of you I haven't met yet, I look forward to it. And just to get straight into it, because I know time is short, we'll talk about what property research is and I guess what it isn't. So I do spend my time, and my entire team spends virtually all of our time sifting through hundreds of properties that are coming in front of our desks every single day in all the major capital cities. So when we sift through them, we need to look at the market. So Garth did a fantastic job of really explaining the market research that we do. Then we want to delve a little bit deeper, and that starts going into the location research, within which city, which areas hold opportunity for us. Then we dig a little bit deeper and we go into the actual property research. So looking at the individual properties themselves, the pricing, the land, the build, the rent side of things, and what opportunities are there. And it's also just utilizing local knowledge that we've developed over time to make sure that the properties actually meet the local market requirements. What our team does not do is say this particular property is a good investment for one particular person or another, because everyone's circumstances are different. So we're really looking at the big picture of what makes the property low risk, easy to rent out, and likely to perform well over the long term. So as Garth mentioned, he and I were in Adelaide just a few weeks ago. So I thought we'd talk about Adelaide, and you can come along and look at some of the research that we're doing. So just moving on to the next slide, here is a map of Adelaide. We traveled all through the metro region where you see the red dotted line. There are opportunities for infill in some of the inner suburbs, particularly on the coasts. There's a lot of opportunity, well, not a lot, there's opportunity also in the north of the city, and traveling up where Garth's arrow is, you see there's Gawler. That's a growth area where there's some infill opportunity. And we traveled even further up northeast to the gateway of the Barossa Valley, where there's some really exciting opportunities. Now, when you travel east of Adelaide, which we did, we went to Mount Barker, which many people know, and even further on to the Murray Bridge area to explore what's happening there. And then we actually traveled all the way down to the southern coast to Victor Harbor, and a number of spots in between, including the famous Handorf. So we had our German sausages and pretzels. For those of you who are familiar with Adelaide, it was fabulous. Adelaide is a stunning city for those of you who have not been there before. It's got gorgeous beaches, and then it's also got gorgeous hills to the east. So while we were there, not only did we drive around and look at different estates, but we also went into properties that we've been looking at through some of our builders just to see the quality of the trades, the finishes, the inclusions. We met with property managers, property lawyers, developers, builders. So we really spent a lot of time kind of running around and digging deep into the marketplace. If you could move to the next slide, please, Garth. So we'll start at that macro and give you some key Adelaide market insights. So Adelaide is a city of 1.82 million people. It's a robust size. There's a lot of economic activity going on. It's a growing city. We're actually seeing 1.4% annual population growth. So that means an additional 25,480 people are moving to Adelaide every single year. Now, what that means in terms of property is that we need 11,000 new dwellings each year just to cater for the people who are coming into the city. But at the same time, we need to build those, and building approvals for the last 12 months to October 2024 is only 9,338. So we're sitting at 1,650 shortfall of houses, making the supply further restricted in Adelaide. And so, like Samara was saying, and you've heard Garth talking about, there's a lack of supply. There's a lot of demand right now from both tenants and owner occupiers, and there's no additional properties being added to the market. Now in Adelaide, this supply issue is being further exacerbated because many areas have aging infrastructure, and that's a real issue because they can't support the new dwellings that are required for the marketplace. So this further restriction of supply will cause rents and prices to go up, which is frustrating, I'm sure, for locals who are living there and trying to rent there. But the positive side for the market is that we should see a really soft landing when the market does come off, as opposed to one of those boom bust scenarios. So currently, if you look at the CoreLogic data that Garth had showed earlier, you see Adelaide is moving at 1.3% per month. Now that's down from 1.8% just back in August. So that's a significant cool down, but we don't think it's gonna, the bottom's gonna come out of the Adelaide market. There's still some really great opportunities there. The stock on the market, on the resale market, is also low. We're looking at only 6,214 houses available. Versus back in December of 2019, we were seeing 14,605, so less than 50%. And in terms of rental vacancy, we're looking at a low rate of 0.6%. So that means that we're seeing rents rising in the market, where typically you're looking at 3% for a balanced market. Next slide, please, Garth. So just digging down further now into that location research. So the first thing that we look at really is timing. Which micro markets within each city are increasing or decreasing generally and in relation to the past, which are having supply issues, where is the supply, and what's happening in terms of infrastructure in that general area. The next timing issue that we're looking at from a macro perspective is where the city sits on the property cost. So with regards to Adelaide, we currently see that at 9 o'clock, according to Heron Todd White's monthly market outlook. And that indicates a rising market. So it means there's a lot of good opportunity, but really only in certain areas, because other certain areas have probably peaked out in terms of pricing. So then we dig a little bit further, which city and which suburb. Well, how connected is each area? Is it connected by major roads, or do you have to drive minor roads for 10 minutes before you hit a major road? Is it serviced by public transportation? How do people actually move around there? Do they drive to the train station and take the train to work? Do they just drive to work? What are the people looking for in the area? And then where are the new developments occurring? Where are those greenfield pockets that are earmarked to support the population growth? Where has the city approved infill in terms of a higher density zonings? And where can we find all the new estates? And then who are the local land developers? Are some of them better than others at producing nice estates, nice master plans, nice streetscapes, community park, community facilities? Where are the shops? Where are the schools? Where are the parks, the hospitals? What services are supporting the community? And then we dig a little bit further on the locations. Which areas within the city are getting the highest rental returns? Which have sufficient resident employment to support the growing rentals should the market increase? Is there high tenant demand in that area? Is it easy to rent a property? Who are the likely tenants and what are they looking for? So we identified a few key markets out of the entire city of Adelaide where we think there's a lot of strong opportunity. Some of those areas are circled in red. You see pockets on the north and south coast. Those are mainly infill areas where there's some awesome opportunities. And then up on the northern side is quite a number of suburbs which have opportunity. But this is one of the areas where supply is very restricted, where the infrastructure is aging and they haven't found the correct solution to open up the pipeline that's required. You also see Mount Barker circled there. There's some very exciting opportunities coming there in the future. There's a huge amount of demand, and this area is also undergoing that supply restriction. So it's really exciting that we'll see a few new estates open up later this year. Let's move on to the next slide, please, where we're going to go into the property research. So in this slide, we're talking about one particular area, one particular property, and this is Murray Bridge, which sits to the east of Adelaide, about an hour. And this is set to become South Australia's largest regional city. So one day we can assume it'll be something similar to a Ballarat or a Mandurah or Bunbury. It is a riverfront location which has very unique culture, lots of water sports, houseboats, and is a thriving recreation and tourism area for South Australia. It's also undergoing a tremendous amount of economic growth with massive projects coming onto the pipeline. A company called Thomas Foods has just opened up a new $300 million processing facility. Planning is currently underway for a $425 million hydrogen project where they're going to take waste and turn it into green energy. There is the largest ever land release in South Australia occurring here in Murray Bridge. It's called Gifford Hill. There's going to be 17,000 new lots delivered over the next coming years. The huge amount of growth in that area. There's also Australia's largest open air zoo there. So a lot of interesting things going on in the area. And we look at what properties are in that area. Now, Murray Bridge has a number of different pockets, a number of new estates. I mentioned Gifford Hill. The one that we have really identified as being one that we're quite positive on is an estate called Narooma Rise. That is a prime riverfront estate. So you can actually walk to the river from all the houses. You can walk to the CBD precinct. So you have all the local shops, restaurants, pubs, library, everything right pretty much within a few hundred meters of your door. We're looking at a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1 garage house. It's a build size of 152 square meters, sitting on land of 402 square meters, which is quite average for that area. A price point of $568,400, which would then rent in the range of $520 to $560 a week. So we're looking at yields of 4.8 to 5.1%. And the last point I made here is about Metricon brick, which is featured on the bottom right of the slide. It's only because I've been chuckling about this brick for months, looking at all these properties and thinking this is the ugliest color brick I could ever imagine. And when we were driving around Adelaide a couple weeks ago, someone mentioned, oh, like, what do you guys think of the Metricon brick? It's all the rage here. Everyone is clamoring to get this on their house. And so I bring it up to you guys to remind you that when you're looking at what makes a good investment property, it's not whether you like the color of the brick or you know, the interior specs, you know, those sort of things. You have to look at the big picture, because ultimately you're not the one who's going to be living in it. And the person who's living in it in Narooma Rise loves Metricon brick. So it really doesn't matter that I personally do not. So let's get to the next slide, please. This is a property that we visited on the top right-hand corner. On the lower left-hand corner is the render. Because it was such a sunny day, you can't see some of the detail, which the tiles in the facade are really lovely. This is a single contract house that's nearly complete. It is in the inner north in Anglevale. So it's close to schools, it's close to parks, it's close to shops, it's close to vineyards and markets, gardens. It's in this really tightly held pocket, only a half an hour out of the city. We've got a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car lockup garage for $787,900. That is returning $710 a week expected. So that's a 4.7% return. Fantastic opportunity, fantastic location. You can see from the photo on the bottom right that the construction is quite neat. We liked all the finishes in there. Yes, it was a great property and one of our really preferred builders. So it was good to just check out some of their work. And mindful of time, we'll skip on to the next slide, please, Garth. These photos come from Tanunda, which is the edge of the Barossa Valley. You see on the top left, the Chateau Tanunda, which is one of the, if not the very first winery to open in South Australia in the Barossa Valley. It's stunning, incredibly impressive. And the whole area is gorgeous, really like quirky, cute town that has lots of shops and cafes, and then you're surrounded by all these gorgeous wineries. We went there particularly to look at a very small estate that we are interested in. That's up on the right-hand side. You can see civil works are underway, so that making way for nice big lots over 500 square meters, which is gorgeous. And when you look at the picture on the bottom right, that is literally on the other side of the road. So an absolutely beautiful area where you can get a large land, a nice big 4-bed house with 2 living areas for $711,884, and end up with about $620 per week rent. So really good returns there. And that's all from me, guys. Next time I'll likely dig in deeper with you on Melbourne because we're really excited about that market, as Garth has mentioned earlier.
Dana, that is fantastic. You've done very well, and really appreciate the update there. Guys, just remember, please, Q&A, put your questions in there. If you can't find that box, just put it in the chat and we will answer the questions there. But thank you, Dana. That was wonderful. I'm going to move to our last presenter now, Claire Christensen. So Claire, if you just want to get your video up, that's lovely. All right, so we're going to introduce Claire, also an expert in her field. So Claire is the General Manager of Rent Choice, Perth rental market expert. Claire is a true trailblazer in the world of real estate, known for unwavering dedication and innovative approach to the industry. She was elected to the board of the REIWA, Real Estate Institute of Western Australia, in 2021. Claire has previously chaired REIWA's Property Management Network Committee when she has been an unapologetic advocate for the real estate industry and property owners alike. With over 2 decades of experience in real estate, Claire has consistently demonstrated her expertise in navigating the ever-evolving landscape of property markets. Claire holds a Bachelor of Commerce from UWA and a diploma in management with real estate. And in 2018, she embraced the challenge of the agency ownership. So she's been a property management owner for 6 years now. Rent Choice is 100% property management only. So that's what they focus on. And they are winners of the REIWA 2023 Small Residential Agency of the Year. I was there when you won it, so that was fantastic that night. And finalists for the same category nationally, as well as this year's 2024 Median Residential Agency. Claire's vision for property management was with an organization that embraces digital disruption but provides good old-fashioned service. And Claire's looking after a number of property managements for our clients and doing an excellent job. So good evening, Claire.
Thanks, Garth. Thanks for inviting me this evening to discuss the Perth rental market. Tonight I'll be covering off a few things. So who we are, Garth, I think you've given a pretty good summary of who I am, but we'll go a little bit deeper there. We'll give you an update on the Perth rental market, and then we'll also be applying this data to a case study to give you an on-ground feeling of our market conditions here in Perth. Okay, do you want to change the screen? Yeah. So as I mentioned, Garth's given a very thorough introduction about myself, but to give you a bit of further background, so I began my real estate journey in 2004 as a sales administrator before advancing into property management. I have a deep understanding of the Perth real estate landscape, having navigated strata, commercial and residential property management, and have successfully led large property management teams, as well as being a property manager myself. As Garth mentioned, in 2018, we purchased Rent Choice. We are now a team of 12 with approximately 1,100 properties under management. We have won the 2023 REWA Awards for Excellent Small Agency. And yeah, this year we've stepped up a category and are finalists in the medium agency. So Garth, I'm hoping you're going to be my lucky charm again in November and come to that one. I think it's the 13th. So fingers crossed. Next slide, please. So whether you own one or multiple rental properties, it always comes with demands. Time, effort, and expertise. As landlords ourselves, we understand these challenges. Our role at Rent Choice is to transform your asset into a source of freedom, not frustration. We believe in effective property management goes beyond rent collection, and our approach is grounded in expertise and technological efficiencies, which often outweighs the cost of professional management. We prioritize tenant selection, maintain investment value, and elevate your burden, minimizing stress and risk. Enough about us, let's get on to the property market. So next slide. REWA data shows us that rents have risen across Perth over the past 5 years. Although we're coming off a very long downturn where rents fell and were stagnant, and then of course we had the COVID moratorium on rents and evictions, which froze our state's laws. As you can see in the charts provided by REWA, the data shows a change in the market with median rent stabilising since March 2024 and the vacancy rate rising. An indicator we also like to look at is the number of bonds held within the bond administration. And with bond numbers increasing, this demonstrates there is new supply coming to the rental market. Again, this is a change as this has remained relatively stable for the past 18 months. The vacancy rate has been below 1% since August 2022. And you can see in the September 2024 uptick to 1.4%. However, this is still well below a balanced market of around 2.5 to 3.5%. Next slide, please. So properties are taking a little longer to rent. Houses in August 2024 were leasing in 20 days, which is the slowest since June 21. And likewise, units leased in a medium of 17 days, which is the lowest since July 22. And both have taken longer to lease than February 2024. So I guess the question is then, can we expect rents to fall? From the REWA data provided and from what we're experiencing ground, we would say it's probably not significant in the short term. It's an interesting time in the market. In some cases, we're seeing when a lease ends, that the properties are coming back to the market at lower prices. But we feel this is more a correction than a sign of falling rents. It is often occurring because the original tenant offered well over the asking price to secure the property initially, and the new rent reflects the current rental value. Another conversation that I have heard it being described as is a breath. You can't always keep going up. You need to stop and take a breath and continue. The high competition we saw in the past few years has eased, and the market has reached an affordability ceiling. And Garth, I believe you mentioned that as well. However, whilst rents are less affordable than what they were 5 years ago, it is still more affordable than a mortgage for most people. So just next slide, please. So to give you a better understanding of the Perth rental market, I wanted to give you a real life example of a case study where Garth and the Property Powerhouse team have worked with our Rent Choice property management team. These properties were purchased by Garth's team off the market. They were 4 brand new 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom villas in the suburb of Bentley. Bentley is a southern suburb of Perth, approximately 8 kilometres southeast of the Perth CBD in the city of Canning. Bentley is a well-established suburb with schools, restaurants, a shopping centre, access to the Perth Armidale train line, and a bus route to the Perth CBD. Most notably, it is home of Curtin University. And according to the most recent census data, the average age of a person living in Bentley is between 20 and 39 years of age. CoreLogic's data suggests that the median sale price is $623,000 for houses and $420,000 for units, with a median rent of $600 a week for both houses and units. So if we just go to the next slide. So just unpacking the numbers on this project. When the development commenced in March 2022, we provided a rental value of $460 per week. We did 2 subsequent market reviews whilst the project was being built, which suggested rents between $550 to $600 per week. We're able to attain early access to the properties prior to settlement to commence the marketing campaign on the 25th of July 24 and actually commence marketing at $720 per week. During the rental campaign, we received 61 rental applications, an average of 15 applications per property. All these applications were processed within an average of 3 days. When we process an application, we look at if the tenant has the means to pay the rent and ability to look after the property, and are equally aligned with the owner to get the selection process right. Therefore, due to our stringent application processing, we conducted 21 home opens to ensure the best possible tenants were found. 48 hours after the application was accepted, the tenant had to pay the bond and the rent in advance into our trust account and sign the lease agreement to secure the property. We did not stop advertising the properties and conducting home opens until this was satisfied, and then based on this process, we kept the property online 31 days from being advertised to the last villa being leased. This is a huge success story for Garth's clients, as it met from day one of settlement, a tenant was secured and commenced paying the rent, resulting in 0 days vacancy. Next slide. I do hope this has given you a better understanding of the Perth rental market and how we work together with your property powerhouse team to get to your next investment to outperform. Garth, I'm happy to take questions, or if anyone else would like to reach out to me directly, I've put my contact details on the screen direct.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Thank you very much. Wonderful information. You're doing a very good job, very thorough job there. So I'll just leave that up there in case anyone wants to. I will move that in a moment. So if you wanted to take a picture and scan that, otherwise I will be sharing details of all the, well, of Claire and Samara, and this has been recorded, so we will share the recording and come through tomorrow. We have done fantastic. We still have 4 minutes, so I'm just going to check if there's any questions that have come through. Not that I'm very good at this, so let's have a look at the Q&As. I'm not sure if we've had any questions come through, but let's have a look there. Dana, a question has come through for you, so if you could unmute yourself and bring the camera up. Questions come up here from Gary. He wanted to know, of the properties that you saw in Adelaide, or the locations, which was your favorite and why?
There's one spot that even I would consider investing in myself. We've got some property in Maslins Beach, which is just on the southern coast, just north of Aldinga Beach, which is quite a well-known beach area in Adelaide. That's just 500 square meters, 500 meters from the beach. So true coastal location, has the scarcity factor, beautiful 4-bed, 2-bath, excuse me, guys, 4-bed, 2-bath house, fixed price, turnkey, with titles being issued in November. So a construction timeline should probably be completing 12 months after slabs, so probably by next Christmas. And that's just a fantastic little spot, super easy to rent, huge demand, great rental yields in the area. So that's definitely one that Garth can send you some more details on.
Okay, another question just come in for you, Dana, so you're in hot demand. What is your opinion on the coastal property value direction in Victoria Harbour and in Counter Bay area? Now, I went there with you, but I'm interested. Sorry, I went there. You didn't get there to Victor Harbour, but I did. But would you like to comment on that?
Sure. Victor Harbour is a stunning location. What we would expect is that as an area more in with better opportunity for sort of Airbnb or your short-term accommodation. A lot of the people who live there are retirees. They call it God's waiting room down in Adelaide. So it doesn't really have a population that is in high employment or roles that could support a lot of rental increases. So we expect to see pretty low yields in the area. Will properties go up there? Look, there is a strong owner-occupier demand there, so there's definitely opportunities. But as far as a low-risk investment, I wouldn't be putting my money there.
Yeah, and again, very much a tourism sort of retire area, maybe like a Margaret River. It is obviously on the coast, really pretty there. but yeah, it's a little bit disconnected to main traffic for Adelaide. So yeah, whereas the north and south along the coast, you do have that transport. But great answer. Thanks very much, Dana. I've got one here for Samara. If you would like to unmute yourself and your camera, if you're still there. This has come through from Jill. Jill was interested to know about what are you seeing with investors? Are you seeing more selling out now the market has been strong, or are you finding more? Is there more investors coming in or more selling at this time of your market?
So the investors that have been in the market for a long time, so I gave that sort of case study of the guys that are nearly with me for the whole 20 years, they've sold out, but they are of retirement age, like they've held their investment for that period of time. So it was a good time for them to sell. Those that have sort of been in the market in terms of being an investor for the last sort of five years, even though their property is now valuing maybe $200,000 more than what they paid for it, they're still essentially holding on. They're not in that position to retire or go traveling and those sorts of things. So they're not ready to pull that money out of those properties at this stage. Obviously, there's been a couple that because of interest rates and their overcommitments, they have had to sell, but they are few and far between that we've seen so far. So that's good, because we don't want to see that happening to people. That's not what we're here to see. Investors have been very slow to return to our market, and I think we're going to start to see them come back now. As I said, we're just starting to see that shift in our market, and I think this is where investors are going to start to come back, because there's going to be that price adjustment. So prices aren't going to fall drastically, but things are going to even out a little bit more. So yeah, I think investors will start to look at us again and come back, and there's certainly that opportunity for good rental returns.
That's great. And we've just got this last question because I'm mindful of time, and this has come for you, Claire. Sally was asking more about rentals that are sort of performing the strongest. So from an investor's perspective, have you found, she asks here, regarding the north side of Perth, south side of Perth, east side of Perth, where we're seeing most of the sort of growth in the rents? And I mean, it's a general question, but are you noticing like any kind of pattern about where the increases are performing best?
Look, when you're in Perth, I feel like everyone's happy to drive a little bit further than, some places in Sydney. We don't have as bad as traffic that's not going to take you 2 hours to get from one side of the city to the other. Likewise, we also have some great transport links that go north, south, east and west. And there are some more projects being built in that area. So what we typically find, things that are getting snapped up really quickly is under that medium rental price, or under $650. We do have a lot of activity at that area, and it's just that affordability, coming back to that conversation on affordability. As we get higher rents, we start seeing a bit of composition in respect to who's living in the property. So it might be two couples sharing. And, Perth is a very, very highly driven mining state. So we do see quite frequently having two professional couples staying together, but they're on completely different swings. So it's like that you've only got a couple living there at one time, but you've got 4 people on the lease with 4 really good incomes. So, I would say probably have a look at your transport links, have a look at your established areas, see what, kind of what the leading things that Dana was talking about, schools, shops, accessibility to the city and employment options are really the key drivers. And at the moment, most of Perth is leasing. We say that the vacancy rate's gone up slightly. It's 1.4%. That's, still 98 point something percent properties are leased. So, it's an interesting market, but it's definitely, you find the right product and people will definitely be there renting it.
No, that's wonderful, guys. Thank you. And Thanks for all our attendees joining us tonight. We've just gone a smidgen over our 1 hour. Well done to the presenters, presented wonderfully. They're really good education, information, and thanks for squeezing it into your little time slots there. There will be a recording that will go out tomorrow. I will supply the landline number and email address for Claire for Perth and for Samara. Even if you'd like to get a second opinion of what's happening with your current market and your property management, and you'll be hearing obviously from Dana a lot moving forward. We go to Melbourne in November, so we'll definitely, when we have our first webinar, which will hopefully be February next year, we'll give you a real rundown on what's happening in Melbourne. But I don't think there's any other questions, and otherwise I think we're going to call it a day. Thanks very much for attendees, and thank you to our wonderful presenters. Have a good evening. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.